Anytime now for your question of the day. Which controversial not guilty verdict happened on this day in 1982? Well, John Hinckley Jr.'s assassination attempt of President Ronald Reagan. After an 8-week trial, Hinckley was found innocent by reason of insanity and was placed in institutional psychiatric care for over 30 years. Now, in 1981, Hinckley fired several shots at President Reagan while he left the Hilton Hotel in Washington, D.C. He hit the president in the chest, Press Secretary James Brady in the head, and a police officer and Secret Service agent were shot too. Now, while President Reagan made a full recovery, Brady was unfortunately left with permanent brain damage and was confined to a wheelchair. All of this happened because Hinckley was allegedly obsessed with the movie Taxi Driver and an 18-year-old Jodie Foster who played a child prostitute. In a letter written to Foster the day of the shooting, Hinckley said, quote, "Please look into your heart and at least give me the chance with this historical deed to gain your respect and love." Now, in 2016, Hinckley was cleared to leave psychiatric care. Today, he spends his time with his cats and writes love songs, which he publishes on his own YouTube page. Rob?
Well, it's just, isn't that just the whole thing is just a bizarre story.
It's very bizarre.
You know, I had an interview opportunity with Jodie Foster when I was working in Kansas City in the Heartland, and apparently her people tell whomever she's going on, you know, whatever she's talking about, a movie or whatever it is, that she doesn't want to talk about that. And it's interesting, doing the interview, I didn't really care about the movie, but I wanted to know what her take was on this wacky guy that was so obsessed with her, he tried to kill an American president, a great American president, and that would have totally altered history.
Yeah, I can't even imagine being in her shoes and the whole thing.
All right, let's talk more about this, Allison. Thank you. Just months after being elected president, as Allison was saying, in 1981, Ronald Reagan was shot in that ambush attack just outside the Washington Hilton Hotel, shocking the country and the world. But what if the outcome was different? Joining us now to talk more about this is presidential historian and author of Reagan in Pursuit of the Presidency, 1980, Doug Weed, back with us today. Doug, good morning. Nice to see you. Happy belated Father's Day.
Thanks. Good morning, Rob.
Doug, it's you know, historians have done this with John F. Kennedy. They've, of course, done it with Abraham Lincoln, but they've done it with Ronald Reagan as well. And this country would be a whole lot different if President Reagan were killed on that day in 1981, wouldn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I love George H.W. Bush, and I believe he was the perfect man at his time. He subscribed to Napoleon's dictum that you never interrupt your opponent if they're in the middle of defeating themselves. So he kept hands off as the Soviet Union unraveled. But if he had been the president, I doubt if he would have stood down Gorbachev at Reykjavik. I think he would have bowed to the advice and the pressure at that time to make a deal with Gorbachev. Reagan did not. He fiercely stood up to it. There were screams from all over the world, from our allies, from the media, of course, that Reagan should have worked with Gorbachev. He lost the peace, but in fact, he had won the Cold War.
Well, and Doug, people forget that 1985, Gorby and Reagan get together in Geneva, Switzerland, just like Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin did last week. And I think you could argue that Reagan was maybe the first and only American president to have a truly close relationship with a Russian president. And he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And the Soviet Union came into a formal end when George H.W. Bush was in office in 1991. But it was this shooting that I think, you know, Reagan at that time wasn't a terribly popular president. We were coming out of that corridor recession, and all of a sudden he waves out the window at Walter Reed with a bathrobe on, with Nancy by his side, and he generated all this sympathy, and Reagan went on to steamroll Walter Mondale in 1984. So John Hinckley, he might have done Ronald Reagan ultimately a favor in this instance.
Well, it's a very complicated story because there are issues family members who have other family members who are bipolar or have mental issues. And Reagan dumped all of that on the states. So there's criticism of him there, and some say it came back to bite him with this Hinckley thing. But think of this. Going into that verdict with Hinckley, only 2% of murder cases were defended by the insanity plea, and only 1% were ever found innocent, and yet John Hinckley was found innocent. So a lot of people were outraged by that.
I know there was a great line, Doug, that Reagan had, and this man, they say he was an actor. Fine, he might have been an actor professionally, but this was a charming, charming man. He's been shot. He's in his, I think he's in his early 70s, late 60s at that time period, late 60s, I think. And he says to the doctors, he said, "Are you Republicans or Democrats?" And the doctors that are about to put him under and operate on him, they say, "Mr. President, we're all Republicans today."
Yes, and he said, "I'd rather be in Philadelphia." He quoted a line from W.C. Fields.
Right.
He had a wonderful sense of humor, and the Americans loved that. He had no guile, wasn't against anybody. He fiercely saw what communism did and how it destroyed people and destroyed their dreams and their will to live. And he was opposed to that no matter what anybody said, but he kept a smile on his face.
And I know that non-guilty verdict on John Hinckley upset many Americans after that happened, but Ronald Reagan went on to serve a full 8 years in the Oval Office, and then George Bush took over after that. Doug Weed, pleasure having you on. Good to see you as always, my friend.
Thanks, Rob. Great.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.